Welcome to Uncharted Entrepreneurship, your front row seat to daring stories from the boldest business trailblazers forging new paths across industries. I'm your host, Brent Peterson, armed with inside access, sitting down with partners, founders, and CEOs in the entrepreneurial world. Let's explore. This May 9th, 2024, ignite your entrepreneurial spirit at the Entrepreneurs Rally, a day where vision meets action in the heart of Minnesota. Join us at the JW Marriott for an unparalleled gathering of minds. Witness NBA legend and business maven Bill Walton share his journey from the basketball court to the boardroom. Be inspired by Candace Mama, Vogue Paris' most inspiring woman, as she unpacks the power of forgiveness and leadership. From the opening coffee to the closing VIP reception, the Entrepreneurs Rally is your arena to connect, learn, and grow. With over 500 entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and experts, it's more than an event. It's a catalyst for your next big leap. Whether you're looking to deepen your knowledge in sales, finance, marketing, or operations, or to ignite your passion and meet like-minded individuals, this is where your journey accelerates. Don't miss out on this extraordinary learning, networking, and inspiration day. Reserve your spot now for the Entrepreneurs Rally. Go to entrepreneursrally.org. The Entrepreneurs Rally. This May 9th, 2024 at the Mall of America. That's entrepreneursrally.org, where dreams meet drive. See you there. Welcome to this episode of Uncharted Entrepreneurship. Today I have Heidi Olson. Heidi, go ahead, introduce yourself, tell us your day-to-day role and your rebranded company, used to be All-in-One Accounting, and maybe one of your passions in life.
Thanks for having me, Brent. I'm Heidi Olson. I'm the visionary and founder of All-in-One Accounting, CEO. My day-to-day role is to direct the vision and mission of the company and to inspire my team around what we're doing and how we're impacting the world. And so my day-to-day life looks like spreading the good word of what we're doing, working on strategy, executing on that with my key leaders, and really driving that change throughout the organization. This past year, we rebranded. We launched 2 new brands, Veracity Pros, which is our nonprofit division focused on serving nonprofits throughout the nation, and Accountinuity, which is our for-profit division, really focused on serving entrepreneurs. Really excited about that. After 20 years, we decided it was time to rebrand.
And passions?
Passions? Well, my number one passion is really God and family, but I really started this business because I'm very passionate about serving entrepreneurs. I love entrepreneurs. My parents are both entrepreneurs, and I really wanted to make their lives better, and that's why I started All-in-One Accounting 20 years ago out of my basement. I also love nonprofits and their missions and how they're changing the world, and so to be able to serve both of those in my role, I often tell people I'm more excited today than I was 20 years ago. And so that's really, I think, tells about how passionate I am about this business and how much I love it every single day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know that sometimes as an entrepreneur in it for the long haul, which we were, and you helped us to move to our next stage, but it is sometimes hard to keep that energy alive, right?
Very hard. And oftentimes I talk now with fellow entrepreneurs and new entrepreneurs about how do you keep that energy there. And often I talk now about training like a corporate athlete and what that looks like to stay mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually on your game and to really focus on that, because now we have a team of about 110 and about 400 clients, and I really feel like it's my responsibility to stay on top of my game and to really train. And that means a lot of things like being a lifelong learner, really maintain a very high degree of learning, and the world's changing really fast. And so you have to spend a lot of time learning, I think. So that's, talking to people of all different, all over the world, right, of all different types of people, and really understanding where they're at, really reading, listening to blogs, just really understanding technology. Technology is changing so fast, keeping yourself physically fit, spiritually fit, all the things so that you can best serve your team and your clients. I think it's really important.
Yeah, and we'll dive into some of those topics in a minute here. First, so I can stay on top of my joke telling game, which again I'm not very good at, but you have graciously volunteered to be part of the free joke project. So all I'm going to do is tell you a joke, and all you have to do is say, should this joke be free, or do you think someday somebody could charge for it? And in your case, maybe we should say, is this a nonprofit? No, we shouldn't say that. Is this a for-profit joke, or is this a nonprofit joke? Not to say that a nonprofit joke is any worse or better than a for-profit joke, but I'm making things way more complicated. Here we go. A man walked into a seafood restaurant and asked for lobster tail. The waitress smiled and said, "Once upon a time, there was a handsome lobster who, dot, dot, dot."
I think that one should be on the nonprofit side.
All right. Um, yeah, maybe helping up and coming joke tellers. Yeah.
That's right.
Anyways,
Yep.
yeah, that is yeah. I think out of 200 and something episodes, I've had 5 that are for profit, so that's all right.
Keep trying, Brent. Keep trying.
Keep trying, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. I know that you mentioned your parents were both entrepreneurs. Tell us a little bit about the journey, how you got into where you're at, and and maybe a little bit about how important accounting is in entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. Well, let me tell you a little bit about my story. So I started all-in-one accounting out of my basement. It's 20 years this fall that I did that. And I did it because I really saw a need in the market. 20 years ago, there was no one really providing internal accounting resources for small businesses, entrepreneurs, and nonprofits. So I was doing tax and audit work after I graduated from college, got my CPA license. And I saw every year these entrepreneurs, small businesses, and nonprofits coming in, and their books were a mess. And I would often ask them, like, how are you running your businesses? How are you making data-driven decisions? And they were stressed out. These entrepreneurs, these small business leaders and nonprofits, they were stressed, and they were making decisions by opening up their bank account and seeing how much money they had in their bank account. And year after year, I'd get them cleaned up, and I'd really counsel them, and I'd do their taxes and their audits, and I'd send them on their way. And I could see their stress level, and I could see that I was really crushing their souls and their passion for what they were doing. And after a few years of this, I really identified that I could solve that problem, that internal accounting for them in a really smart way that would provide them with data, that would provide them with insights, KPIs, and information that would allow them to grow their businesses profitably, protect their assets, and get them back to why they started their businesses, right? Their passion, their drive for their service or their product or the innovation that they really, to start a business is a bold move. It's a big risk that we all take, right? And to surround yourself with people that can solve the things that, I always say, like, no one goes into business to do accounting unless you're an accountant. Right? It's just one of those things that you have to do. Like for me, it's like I have to do marketing. I didn't start my business to do marketing. I have to surround myself with people who know how to do the things that I don't know how to do to be successful. So 20 years ago, I see all this happening. I understand that I can really impact and help entrepreneurs and nonprofits. I can help their lives be better. I can help them be more successful. Nonprofits, if I take this burden of accounting off of them, their missions will go further. They're going to help more people. And so 20 years ago, I threw out my shingle. I was 6 months pregnant with my first baby. So my husband thought it was absolutely insane. Like, you're going to quit your job and you're 6 months pregnant, and I was so driven to help people. I just thought, this is it. I'm just doing it. And it was a big risk, to start this business out of my basement, and really with the goal of helping people and honestly to cover the mortgage. Like, there was no aspiration of like big things at that point. It really was to help entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and to keep afloat at home, make the mortgage. And And that accounting, what that does for entrepreneurs and nonprofits is it takes away that noise for them so that they can focus on the reason why they started their businesses and their mission, so that they can do more of that and they can get that energy back, right? They can get back to that passion. And that, that allows them to grow, that allows them to hire people, that allows them to impact more people in their lives. And that truly is what fills me up. When they can get that information, they can make better decisions, they can hire more people, they can buy that equipment, they can build out, they can buy that land, they can buy that building, they can extend their, I mean, it really, you can see the impact of your work, and that really fills me up in what I
I
do.
like what you said earlier about just running your business by looking at your bank balance every day. I can share from my own experience that for a while we did that. Tell us, not in super detail, but the difference between your cash flow, like what is your cash flow going to be in a month or 2 months or 3 months, and just looking at your business every day. How can how can an accountant, or how can looking at your books in more of a longer term fashion help you as a business person?
Absolutely. So one of the things that can be extremely impactful is to have a budget laid out and be looking at budget versus actual. That's going to really tell you how you're performing in terms of profitability. And then you can put that into a cash flow forecast that can really predict how you're going to do long term. Because I think it's very hard to understand how your current profitability is going to impact your long term cash flow. But the reality is, if you want to build long term cash flow, you have to be profitable in the moment. And the other thing that a lot of people don't understand is that growth really tightens your cash flow. So I have a lot of people that come to me and they're like, I'm growing so fast and I doubled my cash, my revenue, but I don't have any cash. Well, guess what? It's probably sitting in your receivables or it's sitting in your inventory. And a lot of people forget to pay attention to those things. And so as you grow a business, there's a lot of things you have to pay attention to really closely, like AR and managing your receivables, managing your inventory. And you might have to look at changing the way that you actually do those things, the way you bill, the way you collect, and some of those things. You have to maybe look at your banking relationships. You might need more capital, because otherwise that cash is going to be constricted and you're going to feel the pressure, because it costs money and cash to grow. And people don't realize that. They just think, I'm selling more. Where's the money? But it takes time. That cash cycle, that sales cycle takes time. So to your point, it takes, it might be a 60 or 90-day cash cycle. So from the time you sell, and a lot of entrepreneurs are sales driven. So they think, I made the sale today. Where's the money? Well, it takes time to get that in, and you've already paid for the payroll, you've already paid for the inventory, so you got all the cash going out the door, and it takes time for that cash to come in. And so understanding those cycles and being able to look at current profitability versus budget, where might you be off the rails, and then also just that sales cycle of receivables and inventory, and being able to forecast that and have someone kind of explain it to you. And part of what I really love about what we do is that we really like to walk alongside our clients and educate and train. So, and not in a way that like is too high level, but like meet people where they're at, and talk with them and educate them over time, as to not overwhelm them. So
Yeah, you've already answered a few of my questions that I was going to ask you. The first one was, how do you help educate an entrepreneur who thinks they are an accountant and they don't need somebody like you, and in the next breath they say, I'm not profitable because I have no cash?
yeah. Well, I think we start with the basics, start with a balance sheet and income statement, and really maybe start, by section, really kind of, because I think if you try to explain it all in one sitting, it's overwhelming. I think you really kind of have to break it down into some pieces. And then over time, maybe it's a monthly or quarterly review, take some sections and really help an entrepreneur understand by section. And really, I think the biggest driver, like you said, is cash, maybe focusing that from a cash perspective, how cash does build or where it goes. So an entrepreneur can really understand that piece, and how to leverage cash, right? One of the other things that an entrepreneur like really tends to struggle with is how much cash they might put in or take out of the business really does impact the business, because you can't, oftentimes I really do have to talk with entrepreneurs about you can't take too much cash out of the business because then the business is going to hurt. So you have and be in a position. I always say, be in a position where you cannot take any money out of the business, or you can put money back in the business. Like you owe that to your business and your team. So don't be too tight personally where you can't have that flexibility.
Um, Believe it or not, at one point I was a younger person and I started a business and I did those same things that you talked about in your introduction. In fact, I remember printing out my general ledger and handing it to my accountant. It was probably about that thick, and I had all my cost of goods sold in my expense. And I just remember them looking at me thinking, "Oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?" How do you like when is okay, so number one, when is the right time for a young person starting a business? And this is a rhetorical question, but when is the right time for a young person to reach out to a bookkeeper? And then when is the right time to go to a CPA?
Great questions. I think the right time is from the beginning, because if you get things set up right away correctly, then you're going to be a benefit from that information from the beginning, because you have to, my philosophy is you pay for it in the moment or you pay for it after. So why not pay for it in the moment so you can benefit from the information being accurate, versus like what you said, you go in afterwards, you still have to pay to get it accurate afterwards anyway. And then you're just paying for essentially past sins, right? So do you want to dig out of a hole, or do you want to just lay a great foundation and benefit from that foundation? So for me, I would spend some money up front to just get structured correctly and get a little education to start with, and then run with it on your own if that's what you need to do because you're starting a business. That makes sense to me, versus like I'm going to just try it and make all these mistakes and not have good information, and then I still have to go in and like hand it over and be, feel bad about it, and then they have to fix it, and like, no one feels good about that, right? um, because you still have to have it, it still has to be accurate for your taxes. So at the end of the day, you still have to make it accurate. There's no way around it, right? And then in terms of a CPA, you're going to want to have some input at least on your entity structure, depending on the kind of business that you are, depending on what your goals are, how fast you want to grow it, when you want to sell it, do you have partners? You're going to want to have some input on your entity structure from a tax perspective. So I would also recommend get a CPA in the beginning to at least help you with that. And then you're going to want a CPA to do your taxes. And believe me, I don't do my own taxes anymore. I'm a CPA. They get pretty tough pretty fast. So if you're not in that world, don't think you can do your own taxes. Just find a CPA that you like, that's going to spend some time educating you, that is going to spend time helping you plan. There's a lot of them out there. I think surrounding yourself with good advisors is one of the best things that you can do. Don't skimp on it. Spend the money. It's worth it all day long. That would be my advice.
You did mention maybe at some point you're wanting to sell, maybe having your books in the right place. I can speak from experience again here that and full transparency, we came to one all-in-one accounting. You guys did a fantastic job. Thank you so much. But
You're
one
welcome.
thing that we recognized was that if we wanted to be in a position to sell, that whomever is going to buy us is going to want to really look at our books, and that there's going to be third parties examining our books to make sure that whatever we're selling is what we're representing is the real case. And in our case, we had SBA looking at our books as well, so we had extra level of scrutiny, making sure that everything is in order. And I feel like if we didn't make that decision early to get them organized in a way that when we wanted to sell, we'd be ready to, that we wouldn't have been in a position at all to do that. And go back to echo what you said earlier about do it first, and then so you don't have to do it and scramble to do it later. Tell us a little bit about maybe thinking about an exit strategy when you start and how accounting fits into that.
Absolutely. I call these disruptions in the business. And what I say to every entrepreneur is like, be ready for any risk and opportunity in your business. And how do you do that? you have accurate, timely books, and you're surrounded by the right advisors. Because I always say, if my biggest competitor comes and knocks on my door today, and wants to either buy me or wants me to buy them, am I ready? Well, one of the things you have to have is accurate, timely books, because you're going to have to ask for money, or you're going to have to give them your right. And think about the unplanned disruptions that have happened. COVID. What happened with COVID? Going to banks and dealing with the government for PPP and all the other things. If you didn't have accurate, timely books, first of all, you had to scramble to get that done. I can tell you none of our clients had to scramble. Every one of them had accurate, timely financials, and they had bank relationships, and they had their last tax return, right? So that's an unplanned disruption. You're talking about a planned disruption, right? Selling your business. Having accurate, timely financials and having that history, not only do you have that, but you're showing that you have strong operations in your business. A buyer is going to want to see both those things. Accurate, timely financials that have supporting paperwork, work papers that support every balance sheet account, but that shows that you have strong operations in your business. It really does. And that's going to, 10x or whatever, it's going to really increase the value of your business because they're going to be looking at both those things. So I can tell you so many times a business comes to us and they say, oh my gosh, I want to sell and I got to get my books in line. Well, they're looking at 3 to 5 years out, in my opinion, at that point, because if they don't have that in line, they got to create some history, right? Of having accurate, timely financials, a history of having them in line, history of having budgeting, forecasting, modeling, all the things. And again, I think they're missing out on this enormous opportunity to have that data at their fingertips to be making better decisions on a monthly basis on how they're doing. There's so many things that you see in a budget versus actual income statement on a monthly year-to-date basis that are like, oh my gosh, what's happening there? Let's dig into that and figure out what's going on. Opportunity, right?
Yeah, I think you talked a little bit about you don't maybe you're not a marketing person, so you depend on that marketing person, and then some of those risks around that. I feel like the risk around accounting versus a risk around other parts of your business. Maybe banking is a very important relationship, but certainly accounting. And if you do it wrong, if you overextend yourself, and again from experience, we had vendors who would switch their terms from 60 to 90 or even 120 days. Having those conversations about how am I going to deal now with an extra 30 days of float, having a partner to really come to or work with to make sure you can get through those are so important. Tell us a little bit about how maybe entrepreneurs should face those challenges, and then how from an accounting standpoint you help to solve them.
Yeah, I think one of the I would say blessings that we have is that we get to see how 400 companies do things, right? And what I mentioned earlier about this commitment that we have to learning. So we belong to a trade association of companies like ours called FNACA. And about 13 years ago, one of the things that I learned at a meeting was this thing where we went to we require all of our clients to pay us on automatic payment. We started that 13 years ago. And I can tell you our ability to do that, it's required to be a client of ours. We don't chase money. And it has been a game changer for us. And I can tell you how many clients we've shared that with. And I think this ability to your point, to think outside the box and to not accept what people our terms are this. No, well, our terms are this, and this is why. And I negotiate, and if you want to negotiate something else, you talk to me. So I just think this ability to really, this is what the industry says, 30, 60, 90. Well, this is what I say. And let's talk, you can change the norm. You don't have to accept what the industry says, right? My industry says you accept the terms of what your clients say. I say these are my terms, right? So I think this ability to think outside the box and to set terms that work for your business and to make it work and leverage technology and really be innovative. Like I want to break the mold. I want to think differently. And so that's what I would say to you. That's what I would say to any client. And I would say, Brent, where you get caught up is when you work for large corporations where they can demand terms. That's where our clients get stuck. If you're working for Fortune 500, they do get to set the rules. We don't work for those companies, um, so I think that's the only place where you get stuck. I think when you're working for anyone but those companies, you can really be innovative and break the molds and decide like, hey, we're gonna work differently. And so I love that, and I really want all entrepreneurial companies and nonprofits to really question things like, just because we did it that way all these years doesn't mean that we have to do it that way moving forward. Let's question everything. Why not?
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point there. When you should say no to a business, sometimes some of those really big companies can ruin you, right? Even though
Yep.
they're giving you a ton of business, they have all these different things they put into place that make it more difficult to get your cash. And it's great to have the business, but if you never get paid for the business, it's no good, right?
Well, they also push you on your margins too. So at some point you have to ask, is it really good business?
Yeah, I've always had this thing in the back of my head. If you sell enough at a loss, you can make it up on volume. Is that an account? Is that a valid accounting term?
That is not a valid accounting. No.
Um, when you're looking forward now as an entrepreneur or as a business person, what does it look like for the future of an entrepreneur what does it look like for the future of entrepreneurs? Is it changing?
Oh, absolutely. I think the future of entrepreneurship is bright. For me, what I spend a lot of time thinking about is that there are going to be more disruptions, as I talked about earlier, a lot more unplanned disruptions for entrepreneurs. Technology, AI, I think is on my mind all the time. How can we? I think we all. It's not how can we. It's like we have to leverage it in all of our businesses and being really on the forefront of that. Um, I think this defining purpose and inspiring purpose in all of our businesses, I think all of us have to do that. I think people want that. And I think that they are gravitating towards businesses that really have purpose. And that's where they want to work, and that's where they want to go and where they want to stay. I think focusing on leading with authenticity and having heart, I think that's going to be really important for entrepreneurs in the future. And I think the reality is that things are moving so fast in this world, and the globe is just getting so much, like we can just get anywhere, we can talk to anybody, like everything is so connected, and so the world is becoming a smaller place. And so just really, I think embracing that, and like I mentioned earlier, talking to everybody. I shouldn't just be talking to other CEOs. I should be talking to everybody. Everybody I can talk to about every topic, and just really being a sponge for knowledge. And that will help me, I think, be the best leader that I can to my team, to my clients, to my family, to my church, to everybody that I interact with. So that's how I see the future of entrepreneurship. It's going to be fast. We're going to have to leverage technology. We're going to have to stay and taking bold risks. Like that's where it's at. I
Um, I
I
I want to make one. I'll make my last question about AI and how I feel people are going to lean into it more, which maybe they should. But the importance of an audit, right? And I'll say from experience, our new company is built around AI, and we realize that it's not consistent unless you build your own model and run your own model, which becomes very expensive. It's not consistent and it's not always accurate. And I can say I tally numbers sometimes using ChatGPT, and it's wrong. And I always double check the math. And even my wife said, "Well, why would you trust ChatGPT?" I think, and here's what I'd like you to comment. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are going to lean into ChatGPT or one of those models for their accounting, and they're going to believe in the numbers. And at the end of the year, when they go to the tax man, they're going to discover that ChatGPT was wrong. And ChatGPT will say, "Oh, I'm very sorry. You're right. Here's the correct numbers." At that point, it may be too late. What is your view on making sure humans are still involved in that process?
Oh, 100%. I think that a person leveraging AI is where it's at. And I think that there, to your point, there's always got to be a reconciliation process, as in everything, right? Like everything we do has to have a reconciliation process. That's why we have a quality review process. That's one of our guarantees on the Accountinuity side. There always has to be a reconciliation process to check everything. And so ChatGPT should have its own reconciliation process. That's my answer, Brent, right? It should be checking its own work at the end of the day. But AI to me is about our team leveraging it. It's not AI replacing anything. It's our team using it to be more efficient. And, we certainly already are. There's all kinds of generative AI that we're using already with our systems, with QuickBooks, with all the things. And it's just figuring out more ways to leverage it within our team, right? But even I think, when I think of enterprise-wide with all it's crazy, Brent, when I think of 20 years ago, the kind of technology, 20 years ago, we would drive to the client's office, sit down on their computer and do accounting work. That is so not the way it works anymore. Now we don't even go to the client site, and we use so much different technology that plugs into, it's a completely different world. And imagine what it will be like in 10 years. It's all about the technology. It's totally different than it was, and it will be completely different in 10 years. And so really embracing that and really taking some bold chances to get there, that's where I think it's at.
That's great. So as I close out the podcast, I give my guest a chance to do a shameless plug about anything you'd like. What would you like to plug today?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we did rebrand last year, and so maybe I can just talk about Veracity Pros and Accountinuity. So our Veracity's Pros brand is our nonprofit brand, and this is where we focus on servicing nonprofits. And so we're focused, our target market is a executive director or board of directors, US-based nonprofit, 2 to 25 million, and we can do all of their accounting. And an ideal client is 50 to 70 hours per month, and we really can work nationwide. And our commitment is that if we've done their accounting for 12 months, we guarantee a clean audit, or we will pay for their audit. And so that's a really meaty guarantee. And on the Accountinuity side, it's the same thing, except for it's an entrepreneur or small business, 2 to 25 million, US based, looking for 50 to 70 hours where we can do their accountant, controller, and CFO work. And on that side, we have a quality review guarantee. So we do our own quality review, and if it's below 85%, we pay for their monthly accounting fees. And so we're really standing behind our work. I have an amazing team. There's about 110 of us now, and we do great work, and we stand behind it, and we just want to make the world a better place by making entrepreneurs giving them back to their passion and giving them great information so they can make data-driven decisions, and our nonprofits getting them back to doing their missions and extending their missions and having happy boards of directors that believe in the numbers.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do want to just close out on every entrepreneur should focus on what they do best. And even if they think they're great accountants, they're not in the business to do accounting. And just like you said, most people, or a lot of people, will go to an account or marketing firm or a sale, whatever that external firm is. I feel like accounting should be the first place they go to.
I would agree. I think it's probably the easiest thing to outsource to somebody really good that can help you grow profitably and protect your assets.
That's great. Heidi Olson, CEO of Accountinuity and Veracity, is that correct?
Veracity Pros, yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you, Brent. I enjoyed it a lot. Thanks.
Uncharted Entrepreneurship is a production of Content Basis LLC. Copyright 2023. You can find more award-winning content at contentbasis.io. And that wraps up the latest edition of Uncharted Entrepreneurship. Bold tales from entrepreneurial trailblazers. I'm your host, Brent Peterson, signing off after an incredible fireside chat with one of our intrepid trailblazing guests. Their first-hand perspective on conquering the unexplored wilds of business is just a taste of the rare wisdom you'll discover from pioneering entrepreneurs on this show. I also invite you to join me each week for insider commentary on the startup scene and digital marketing landscape on my Talk Commerce podcast. You can find Talk Commerce wherever you download podcasts or go to talk-commerce.com. I'd be grateful if you left a review and rating for Uncharted Entrepreneurship to help more bold founders find their way to game-changing insights that empower ventures to transform communities. This is your host, Brent Peterson, signing off for now. I'll see you around the virtual campfire next episode as we embark on another adventure into the great entrepreneurial unknown.